Hello everyone, and welcome to this new series, Innovaud Expand. My name is Bory, and we are here today with Fabien Jordan, Fabio Ronga, and Graf for an event that will be dedicated to how to scale your Swiss-based startup globally. I can see some people are joining, and I'm very happy to see that. We will wait a few minutes before starting concretely, because I see numbers now exactly coming up. Hello, okay, welcome, welcome. I'm just going to do. All right, just verifying that we are recording this session, because I guess some of you will be happy to see some of the parts later on. So this series of events is made of 4 events that we're gonna have in the coming weeks. So today is the first one. I'm very happy to launch this one on how to scale your Swiss-based startup globally. But next week, next Monday, we'll talk about how to adapt your regulatory plan, focus on life science startups. Some of you who are not in life science, that might be of interest, but maybe not directly. Then on the 9th of June, we'll talk about how to manage your board during a crisis. We have quite a few entrepreneurs we know now in the room, and this has been a recurring topic for many of you. So if you are interested in hearing some experience of experienced entrepreneur, like join us on the 9th. On June 16, we'll talk about how to foster corporate partnerships online. Again, how to maintain those partnerships during the lockdown. My name is Bory. I work for venturelab, a company that is supporting entrepreneurs all around Switzerland. We have offices in Lausanne and in Zurich, and we run programs to help you guys raise some funds and become worldwide and successful startups. We are actually here today also in collaboration with Innovaud. You could see the name, I think, of this series, Innovaud Expand. So it's a great pleasure to collaborate, and I've been organizing this with them in the past weeks. And today we actually have someone from Innovaud that will also share her experience, Caroline Graf, manager, and also in charge of the Scale Up Vaud, so the program that we're also going to present today. Very happy to have you with us, Caroline. As another guest speaker today, we have Fabio Ronga, the CEO of Beqom. Thanks for being with us today. He will be our second speaker. And as a third speaker, we have Fabien Jordan, CEO of Astrocast, who will also share his experience on how to grow and internationalize a startup that is based in Switzerland, and what are the advantages and obstacles to overcome. In order for you to understand a little bit the context here, we have a short video explaining Innovaud and what they've been doing in the past years. So here's a short video to show you.
Nous connaissons Innovaud depuis quelques années. C'est vraiment une porte d'entrée pour les entreprises qui cherchent à se développer. Ils organisent pas mal d'événements autour de l'innovation. Depuis la fin de l'année passée, nous avons un coach platine en organisation qui vient au sein de notre entreprise nous aider à améliorer nos processus.
Innovaud nous soutient depuis de nombreuses années, également le canton de Vaud avec le service de la promotion économique et de l'innovation. Les 2 entités nous suivent de près. Pour ce qui concerne l'état de Vaud, c'est beaucoup de subventions en fait pour la formation des collaborateurs et puis pour le développement de nouveaux produits et la participation à des événements. Concernant Innovaud, c'était du soutien pour trouver du financement, notamment, je m'en souviens à l'époque, ligne de crédit quand on était encore une start-up. Et puis depuis quelques années, on fait partie de ce label Scale Up Vaud, et Innovaud organise des rencontres de patrons de Scale Up qui sont extrêmement utiles.
Perfect. Well, I hope this worked out with the sound and the image. We know how that is on Zoom sometimes. But I hope now we understand a little bit better what Innovaud is doing and this collaboration and what we're trying now to achieve with these 4 episodes. And without further ado, I would love to introduce you to Caroline Graf from Innovaud and let her share her experience and what she's been accomplished here with Innovaud with the new program Scale Up Vo. I will stop sharing my screen, and Caroline, you're welcome to share yours. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Julia. So let me share my slides briefly. Okay, is it okay like that? You see my screen? Great. So hi everyone. Glad to be here today with Innovaud and the 2 scale-ups present today. So I'm a project manager at Innovaud and specifically dedicated to the Scale Up Vo initiative. So I'm really happy to tell you more about Innovaud's mission and as well as the support we have for scale-up companies. So as you've just seen in the video, Innovaud is the entry door for innovation in the canton of Vaud. We support startups, scale-ups and SMEs in the region, and since 2013, we are financed by the SPEI, the Department of Economy and Innovation, and we have 5 main missions. Some of them are new, thanks to the recent merger we had with another association. So I'm gonna quickly tell you more about what Innovaud is doing and then what we do specifically for scale-up company. So our main missions are to connect, promote, invest, expand, and explore. So connect is really to put the startups in touch with the ecosystem. So our innovation advisor meets more than 400 startups, SMEs, and scale-ups every year, and we try to help them connect with the best partners, also with coaching, hosting, or financing. Promotion, we communicate a lot about the companies with different articles, videos, also at events. So we give a lot of visibilities to the startups and entrepreneurs. The Invest mission is a new mission, which is to attract foreign companies in the region and also help them establish here. Expand is actually the topic of today, helping the startups and scale-ups to go global and to internationalize. And Explore is actually a strategic innovation scouting around the globe in the innovation hubs. So if we look at this map, we see that Switzerland is often very well ranked in the innovation hubs around the world and in Europe. This is a study of the Tech to Growth from last year, and we see that 9 out of 50 of the most dynamic scale-ups are in Switzerland. You see the 9 scale-ups on this list, and 4 of them are in the canton of Vaud. One of them is actually Beqom, present today. And all 4 scale-ups here are also in the Scale Up Vo initiative. So this is a sign that the region has a really high potential also for scale-up companies. So more specifically now on the Scale Up Vo initiative. So this was launched in 2016 by Innovaud with the goal to support this specific group of companies and help them in the growth phase. So why is it so important to support the scale-up companies? Because they have a high impact for the region specifically, because they attract talents, but they create a lot of jobs, and as well as visibility, investors, and else. So this is why we thought there are other scale-up hubs around the world, and it's important to foster this group of companies in the region. What is exactly a scale-up company? So this is a company with a strong growth. It's not a startup anymore because it's a company who found its business model and now is really looking to reach the whole of its potential market with other challenges such as internationalization is one, but as well as finding talents, and growth financing and other really specific challenges that faces this company. So now, what do you need to be considered a scale-up? and get the label, for example, for the Scale-up community. So you need to show a 20% growth rate of employment over 3 years, 3 consecutive years, with a minimum of 10 employees at the start of the period. So it's quite challenging criteria, because you need first to have the 10 employees in Switzerland and in Vaud more specifically, and then show 20% growth rate of employment rate over 3 years to get this Scale-up label, which is then reconsidered every year. And you need to be established in Vaud, of course, for our initiative, and also be tech-based with a global ambition. And so afterwards, what do we do concretely for the scale-ups in the Scale-up initiative? We have also 4 main actions, a bit same as the Innovaud mission, but specifically dedicated to scale-ups. So one of them is promotion, the support, the community, and the network. So we communicate a lot on the scale-ups company. We invite them to dedicated events. We do also specific projects for them that really them, and we connect them also in the ecosystem. And one of the main valuable thing is the community. So we connect the CEOs together, also the HR manager or the CFO, and they meet in small groups to exchange on their challenges, which is really something they value, because they are in the same development phase, and they can really get support from their peers. So this is the list of the 27 companies who have got the label in 2020. And altogether, these 27 companies created more than 670 jobs last year worldwide. In total, from the beginning, they created more than 3,000 jobs. So it's, this is quite a lot of jobs. And they raised last year more than 190 million Swiss francs. So if you have any question on the Scale-up community, or if you think you're one of them, or you would like to get more information, just get back to me, and I will be glad to know more about you. So thank you. I hand over back to Julia, and I'm happy to answer your question afterwards.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Caroline, for this introduction. I think we have actually with us today 2 people that are part of this program of the Scale-up Vaud. So someone that has been in the program for some years, someone that is fairly new in the program. So it's also nice to understand that this is something that you can achieve once your startup is growing fast enough. Is there, I think we'll take questions at the end. In the meantime, if you have questions also for everyone online at the moment, there is a Q&A feature below. Don't hesitate to write down your questions here. We'll try to take them as we go during the session. So thank you very much, Caroline, for this introduction. I'm now very happy to introduce Fabio Ronga, who will, the CEO of Beqom, who will, maybe if you can share your slide, that would be easiest. Thank you so much for being here, a company that's been growing quite intensively in the last years and has faced, I think, probably many challenges in terms of internationalization. And I'm very happy that you could join us today to share those experience and advice with us. Thanks, Fabio.
Thank you, Julia. So I take this opportunity to thank Innovaud and venturelab for organizing this exchange. Like we heard in the video, indeed, this exchange are very, very useful. You know, I'm thinking about this, the events that Innovaud is consistently organizing. There is value taste. If you have a chance to be part of it, just do, because honestly, this is very, very, very helpful. Okay, so just in 15 minutes, trying to share experience about a topic personally that I love, which is going global, in this case from Switzerland. Just gonna start with a quick, sorry, yeah, here we go, a quick intro slide. First, above the bar, about myself. It's pretty recent that I live and work in Switzerland, although I was born and raised here. always worked overseas. And I will compare a little bit the current experience with my previous one, which was a company that we created in the US in 1999 and sold to SAP in 2007. And I think it's, it's always helpful to compare the experience of doing this now from Switzerland, which was a first for me, compare to doing it from the US, where of course many of us have competed there. The company that I'm currently working for, which I co-founded in 2009, is called Beqom. I'm not going to present the company; it's irrelevant here. But maybe you can see that it has offices on the left, has offices all over Europe and the US. We have customers on a worldwide basis, users in every single country of the world, I think, except North Korea. So it's really, really a global deployment. We have about 4 million users. And if you look at the logos, we sell exclusively to very large companies. We are selling compensation management software. So for very large organizations, so you will recognize the logo, and you will see there's not a lot of Swiss companies. Most of them are international. And about half of our revenue are from the US, which is of course our biggest market. Something that you can notice, another fact, is we have about 25% of our people at the headquarters here in Lyon. The rest is outside of Switzerland. And if you look at our major investors, all minority, but it's you don't have Swiss people, unfortunately. There, it's US and France. So the first point is to, when we talk about global, there is a big difference between global and international. And it might not be obvious at the first when you just look at the name, but if you dig in the details, it's very different. International is what I did in the US, what I think all US companies do, for a very good reason. And if you take a closer than us, maybe in France, okay, you have a lot of French companies that are taking the approach that you have on the left column, which is you start locally, because locally is an attractive market and you can survive several years doing things locally. So if you are in the US, you're going to start, designing a product, drafting contracts, setting up prices that will work for your domestic market. And again, it's so huge that it's big enough. And after a few years, you're going to say, oh, you know what? Now I'm going to go international. And if you're in the US, you're going to start with UK, with Singapore, with Hong Kong, because language, because similar. And little by little, you are going to shape your company to go on a global basis by localizing it, by transforming what you have created, initially for your domestic market into something that works, translating the product, adapting the prices, and so on. If you go global, so the right column, the approach is totally different. Is from the beginning, before you start the company, you start designing a system that's going to work absolutely everywhere in the world. And so the product that you design is based on the worldwide requirement. The prices, the price list you are going to define is going to account for currency translation, inflation, and so from the start. The contract that you are going to set up is going to be based, is going to be articulated to take into consideration all the laws in all the countries that you want to operate within the next 10, 20 years. And the approach is the same wherever you are, right? And it's the same product. From the start, it's designed to be localized centrally, et cetera, et cetera. And that's growing global. And there is quite a few things that you can, if you take the left approach or the right approach, if I look at, if you start in France, it might be very limiting, right? Because after you start in France with a French contract, with everything in French, the day you want to go in the UK, in Germany, or in the US, it's a nightmare. And the vast majority, almost all French companies fail to be successful in the US. Right? And the one you hear about, they are the 1% or less that manage to do that process. Of course, if you're if you're a US company, it's a much more logical process. But at the end, you can be successful taking both approach. But nevertheless, there will be significant difference. And indication are, how heavy is your headquarter? If you started domestic and implementation, the vast majority of your employee will be at your headquarter, wherever it is. If you go global, you're going to have a pretty light headquarter. People will be in the countries. And for me, the acid test. So if you're wondering, am I a global? You started a few years ago. Are you domestic or global? For me, a very valid test is your mailbox. The language of the emails coming from the other people working with you at the headquarters, at the office. So if you have an office in Lausanne, right? When you have an email from a colleague, so you are French speaking. You have a French-speaking colleague is sending you an email. Is that email in French or in English? If it's in French, you are probably on the left column. If it's in English, you are definitely on the right column. If you are communicating in emails, in text, in SMS, like in English, because you don't know at the time you create the email, maybe it will have to be forwarded to colleagues that are working in other countries, etc., etc. If you are thinking that way, it definitely means that you have a global framework or mindset versus an international mindset. So hopefully this is clear. If not, we can always come back. I will try to come back with the example. I'm going to skip the criteria. So now let's look at doing a global business because there is, as you have seen in the previous slide, there's a lot of advantage of taking a global approach. You have better economies of scale. You need better gross margin. Everything works better. And Switzerland, and that's if there is one message that I want to communicate today, is that in Switzerland, we have a phenomenal advantage. It's a great place to start a global business compared to the US or compared to France. Why? Because Switzerland is, most of the time, it's way too small, right? So you cannot build a company thinking, oh, I'm going to tackle Switzerland. It works for some industries, but for the vast majority of the product that's going to create, it's just too small. So it's not viable. So from the start, you have to think global beyond Switzerland. Now, also in Switzerland, if you are born and raised here, or you are working with colleagues or partners born and raised here, you will have an international DNA. Just it's so small that when you watch TV, when you read the news, whatever, it's always from other countries, right? The location that we have, this is not to be same thing. We have to realize how lucky we are. If you live in Switzerland, you can without traveling, you can work with Japan, you can work and all of Asia, and you can work with all of the US. For several years, I managed Japan and Korea from New York. It's a nightmare. You start working at 9 p.m. Okay, there is no common time. All this, we take it for granted, but this is a phenomenal advantage. And in terms of travel, same thing. It's very well located. All this is very meaningful. Now, finally, you hear a lot about the value of the Swiss flag. I will never do that personally, because the power of being global is for the consumer, the buyer, to feel that he's buying something that's designed for him locally. So I'm not going to sell something Swiss to an American. I want to sell something American to an American, something French to a French, right? So if you go to the Beqom website as a French person, you are going to feel that French DNA, and there is, right? Because in the management team, as a global company, we have a lot of people from France. We are acquired company in France. Also have 2 people with a US passport based in Lyon, right? Working directly with me on managing these companies. So American people definitely feel that they are dealing with an American company when it comes to Beqom. So I'm not using the Swiss flag, but I'm using the Swiss DNA. Okay, and maybe the passion for quality and these type of things. But for me, what's important in Switzerland is that we are open to the world. That's what you want to advertise, not the Swiss flag. Okay, finally in Switzerland, we have a great local talent pool, and great school, a PFL, etc. People speaking multiple languages, and we have to realize that the stability that we have. You don't have strikes all the time. You can do a plan at 5 years, and you understand what will be the tax law, for the next 5 years. You don't have like, oh, magic, you have a new government and new priorities coming up when it comes to taxes. This is a phenomenal advantage. And finally, the quality of life that we have and the tax environment that we have for founders is meaningful, not just for us, so we enjoy a nice life, but it's also very meaningful because then we'll be able to convince people to move with their family from California, from New York, from Hong Kong, from wherever you want, into Switzerland, and that is a phenomenal advantage. Vaud, I'm not going to drill too much into Vaud specifically compared to Switzerland, but maybe two things I want to highlight. Geneva Airport, if you need Beqom, I need face-to-face. There's no way I will be able to sign a contract, and I can validate this now without face-to-face contract, without face-to-face meeting, even if it's just 1 hour. So for me, to be able to go somewhere, have dinner, and come back quickly is a phenomenal advantage. And for this, the Geneva Airport is simply phenomenal because it's a small airport, easy way in and out, but you have access to a big part of the world with direct flights. And finally, the no Google. Okay, if Beqom in Zurich, I'm not sure we'll have the same talent, because if you live in Zurich, you're the best architect, front-end engineer they want to go to work for Google. They don't want to go work for Beqom. So you get the tier 2. Well, in the area here, and you are a software developer, you want to work for a successful international company, I think Beqom is well positioned because you don't have that Google thing. So Vaud for this, I think, is really at a phenomenal, and there is other advantage, but Vaud is really a great place to be. What were the surprise? So for me, Beqom was the first. I never created a company in Switzerland before. What was the surprise? The financing. Financing, it was amazingly easy, again for Beqom, right? But amazingly easy to do the first, we never raised a lot of money, so we auto-financed the company, but after 3 years, in 2011, after 2 years then, we needed to acquire a company, and for this we needed additional cash. 2 weeks, that's what it took me to raise money from people I didn't know, okay, between the first pitch and the money in the bank. Unheard of, right? But I promise I did it, and it was as easy as that. On the opposite, when it came, in 2017, we wanted to do a big round with a well-known investor. Impossible to do it in Switzerland. And for me, that was very frustrating. In French, we say nul n'est prophète en son pays. All the Swiss guys, they could not believe that there is one company out of 100 that can do that. That's what I heard, only one company out of 1,000 can do this, and you think it's you, really, So that was really frustrating. So we end up raising money from Americans, from Goldman Sachs, right? And then Orazio, Idinvest, which is one of the largest growth funds in France, but not from Switzerland. Very frustrating for me. Same thing with the banks. So banks are really helpful, but they want to help, but they are incapable of helping. They don't have the knowledge. So in our business, we are software. We are SaaS. Software as a business is recurrent. It's its own language, all revenue recognition rules, accounting rules, and they don't understand that. So of course, when they try to fit our business model in their spreadsheet, they can loan us 300K when any US bank can loan us 3 million with the same data, right? So, and finally, a warning if you are new to that. So good news from a tax perspective. If you're an entrepreneur in Switzerland, you don't have tax on the capital gain, right? But you will be taxed on the value of the shares that you are owning for your own company. And sometimes, depending on where you live, I live in the district of Nyon. So the people at the tax office in Nyon, they have no clue. And all of a sudden, they were taxing me on the value of the latest round that we did. So I mean, I could not even afford the taxes I had to pay. So and of course, at the end, it's working out because it's after 18 months, it escalated finally to Lausanne, where they solved the issue, and that's it. Everything is solved. But it can add some stress, unnecessary stress, I would say, around the stuff. So that was the 3 surprises. So finally, Beqom Beqom in Switzerland versus a company like Beqom in the US. Really, the main positive, the talent retention. All my peers that have the same type of companies in Silicon Valley, the number one issue is, what do I do to keep my people? In Beqom, okay, you of course you do your job, you make sure people are happy, right? But it's not, it's not a talent war. if you have this this global approach, you're going to be successful everywhere. US companies of our size, they're really struggling being successful across Europe. And on the negative side, we talked about the capital. We talked about the size of the talent pool. You will not be able to hire all the architects that you need. You are going to have to import, to get visa. But Switzerland has always been very helpful with us. That was never an issue. And finally, I won't have time to talk about this, but happy to follow up with some of you via email if you're interested, is how to be successful in the US specifically, not being based in the US. It's possible. We have done it. Many companies have done it, but that is not obvious. And many companies continue to do the same mistakes. And it starts with the basics, I listed some of them here. But don't send a Swiss friend, with his family to start your business in the US. It's not going to work. So will I do it again? Absolutely. Okay, for all the criteria I met, and watch for the surprise I listed. So if we come back to the title of the webinar, scaling a business globally from Switzerland, the challenge is not scaling. The challenge is not doing it from Switzerland. That's actually a phenomenal advantage. Scaling a business globally from the US, they're struggling. Like you have companies much larger than Beqom that are trying to penetrate Europe and they cannot, right? Because they have this domestic / localization approach. Scaling the business is the challenge. Doing it from Switzerland is an advantage. Take that advantage. Up to you, Julia.
Thank you so much, Fabio, for this presentation. This was really insightful. I am looking now in the Q&A feature, and I don't see any questions, but I had actually one I wanted to ask you before we are following up with Fabien's presentation. You were saying that there is a lot of a common mistake that Swiss people do when they go to the US. You said you should not send a Swiss person to the US with his family. Can you just develop a little bit on why and what would be maybe some other mistakes that we tend to do when trying to go to the US?
Yeah, so of course, I'm simplifying and using stereotype, and each of you, including me, I'm thinking of 5 examples, maybe including Fabien, of a very success story where people did exactly that. But I've seen that mistake so many times, especially from Paris. Okay, you have that French company that was imaginary French company. They are you have many, right? Very good product, very smart people, well educated, good engineer. They come up with an amazing solution, sell it throughout France successfully, and then starting to have some success in Germany and London, and they say now is the time, I'm going to the US. Normally they try with Canada, which makes no sense. Canada is 10% of the US, right? But because they speak French, so they start in Montreal, etc. But then they go to the US, right? And they go to the US by sending their longtime partner there to set it up. Now, go in the shoes of the customer. You are an American consumer, right? Most of your life, you might not even have a passport, right? Most of your life, you have been buying stuff from US people, talking about football and baseball and stuff like this. And all of a sudden, you are going to buy a French product from a guy with a very strange accent. It's like you are not going to feel at ease, right? So if you want to be global, right? And try to understand what you need to be successful in the US. Convince the American guy, the local American guy, to help you promote your global solution over there, and it's going to work. So that's mistake number one. Try to say that the key is going to be to send that guy. And there's so many examples of failure for one example of success. And there is so many examples of success by people that just skip the part where you send someone with their family there. 2, because you are going to start working with an American guy that you don't really know, right? Because you just convince him about your solution and he's your new partner. You guys have to be very close to each other, right? So if that person is not on the East Coast, ET, Eastern Time Zone, It's not going to work because you are not working together for just a project of a few weeks. It's for the next few years. So if the guy is on the East Coast, your day for you, based in Vaud, start at 2 p.m., right? That's 8 a.m. his time. So it's already only the afternoon that you have to work, right? So if you are thinking about teaming up with a guy on the West Coast, forget it, because it's starting best case at 4 o'clock. Most of the time on the long runs, it'll be 5 p.m., right? That's when you can really start working with him. It's not going to work. It's obvious, right? So because you have to be close to each other, right? Zoom is helpful. It works very well for 1 month, 2 months, maybe 3 months, but it's not going to work well for a long time. You need to develop a culture, right? You need one global culture. The only way to create a culture is to spend time together, to trust each other, to share the values. So if you don't have direct access, I think it's going to be very difficult. And, in a few minutes, we're going to hear Fabien, which is doing the exact opposite, very successfully, right? He's on the West Coast, et cetera, et cetera. So there is very, you have to look at your priorities, and you might have very good reason to be on the West Coast and so on. But if you have no clues, if US is the first for you, if you have the choice, you pick a location to hire your partner, a location where you have a direct flight to. So if you're in the Geneva area, if you're in Vaud, I think it has to be New York, because why? You can put an office in DC if you want. I don't know what industry you are in. Maybe in Toronto, right? Because you have Air Canada, but that's it. If not, it's New York. And great news, you have 2 flights, United and Swiss, and that's a phenomenal advantage. I can go there for, meaning I'm losing 2 nights. Okay, not being 2 nights here, I can have a very productive trip in New York, right? I can have a meeting at 4 p.m. there until 4 p.m. at least 4 p.m. the next day, and that's absolutely critical.
I have one short question here that maybe we can still answer before we're jumping in the next presentation. It is from Constant Ondo. He asks, we have a SaaS software, we are a startup. When should we think of going to the US? So this critical question, so they know there is a market in need of their solution, but the question is when. So would you have an advice on that?
Yeah. It's hard without knowing the business. I can tell you what we did for Beqom. So we started the company in 2009. I immediately put a flag there. So there was a guy that I knew, American, living there, super motivated to be part of the company. I told him it was too early, but basically he went there to start making some noise, okay, about what was upcoming, etc., but not actively selling. And in end of 2011, I remember Thanksgiving 2011, that's when we hired our first local, so New York area-based general manager. And then for us, luck strike, we got an RFP from Microsoft in February, and we signed Microsoft as our first US customer in August 2011. So it really put us on the map. So there was like a 3 years delay between the two. So don't wait too much. Don't wait too much, but you need to make sure that you solve, you do all the quick tweaking that you need to do. Do it with London first, right, and Frankfurt and Paris before doing it with New York, I would say.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Fabio, for these answers that were very precise, and I hope we couldn't answer all the questions in the Q&A, but we have some more time at the end of the session.
Yeah, I will answer by chat what I can.
Exactly. If you manage to give some answers in writing, I think it will be very appreciated. And we are going to jump in the next presentation. Fabien, from CEO of Astrocast, we are very happy to have you with us today. Let's do a quick check if you can share your screen and see if that works out.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for the invitation, and let me try to share the screen. Can you see it correctly?
We see it perfectly, yes.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for this opportunity. Thanks to Innovaud and venturelab for that. Great presentation, Fabio. Really enjoyed the presentation. I can see a lot of experience, and I learned a few things, and I share a lot of the points that you mentioned. So our case is a very very specific, I would say, because we are a satellite company, and I'm going to describe what are the constraints for us as a satellite company. I would like to start by saying that the problem we're trying to solve is to connect the planet. Or if you look at the way the planet is connected today, you have roughly about 10% of the surface of the Earth that is covered by terrestrial networks. And what we're doing is we're building a system that allows to connect the remaining 90% of the planet to transmit short messages, IoT data everywhere on the planet. So this is really what Astrocast is about. We are a network. We are a satellite company, but we are, before that, we are a network company, a telecom operator using satellites. So we control almost the entirety of the value chain from the terminal on the left. You can see this is our product. This is a miniaturized device that you can integrate in any type of equipment, a car, in a truck. I'll show a few examples later. And then this terminal sends data to the satellites that is available. We will have many satellites orbiting the Earth. And then the satellites collect these millions of short messages from every remote places of the Earth, send them back to the ground. We have a network of ground stations, gateways in different places. And then the data is rapidly transmitted through our data management system, where our customers can access their data. And it works both ways. So it's a bidirectional system. You can also send messages to the asset. So this is really what we do. Our business model is quite simple to understand. We sell very low cost hardware to basically enables recurring revenues. It's a bit like you buy a phone and then you buy a data plan. At Astrocast, you can buy communication modules that is very low cost, and then you pay every month between $1 and $5 for a data subscription plan. So typically, this is one example. We can connect a remote water distribution infrastructure, purification system. It works of course, for a gas distribution system, power distribution system, and many fixed infrastructures in remote areas in oil and gas and mining as well. We can connect mobile assets. This is an example I like to show. We understand it really well in Switzerland. It's connect the livestock, and there are actually not necessarily in Switzerland, but there are actually a lot of interesting opportunities in the livestock business to detect if for example, if an animal is sick and you want to remove it from the rest of the herd to avoid the bovine disease to spread, for example, to protect your herd. And we see a lot of farmers and governments interested in connecting the animals to be able to reduce the use of antibiotics and manage more efficiently their livestock. Okay, so that's few applications. What people like to see briefly is usually the satellite itself. This is really our heritage. This is where we started as a company. We have a strong heritage in satellite manufacturing, designing, building, launching, and operating. So this is what we do. This is a 5 kilogram satellite that we built from scratch in our office in Switzerland. This is a CAD model just to show you how it looks like when it's in the folded configuration. Then when it's in orbit, you deploy the solar panels. So here you can see the solar panels that we need to produce the power necessary for the satellite. To give you an idea, this is about the size of a shoebox, right? We're talking about a very small form factor. This is the other side of the satellite, where you see the series of antennas that connects to the assets on the ground to retrieve these data we were talking about. And that's the actual real flight models that we have built, and they are almost ready to be launched. We are now waiting on the launch providers because they're getting delayed because of the COVID, obviously. But our satellites, this is our first 5 commercial satellites that will be launched later this year, that will allow us to offer our first commercial service. So how does it work? Basically, just for you to understand, once your satellite is ready, you put it in a suitcase and you go to the launch pad, or you ship it there, and you basically integrate it directly on the rocket, third stage, where you have this deployment system. It's basically a space qualified drawer with a small door at the front and a spring in the back that basically deploy your satellites in orbit. It's quite simple technology, but really efficient. Then the satellite goes up. This was our first launch with SpaceX about a year ago. It was a beautiful launch, and this is how it works. We are working with the traditional launch vehicle, SpaceX, Arianespace, and the Indians as well. And then you deploy the satellites all over the planet. We are mostly on polar orbits and as well as equatorial orbits. So we're talking about how to scale a business globally. So by design and by nature, I would say our project is global. From the technical perspective, everything has been done and built to be global and to cover every single remote areas of the planet. So the satellites can scan the surface of the Earth on a regular basis, and can retrieve all these messages that are being sent by the small modules. So scaling in space is not as hard as we can think. It's nowadays with the standardized launch vehicles and everything, it's quite easy if you have the means. If you have the means, it's quite easy to deploy your network. But the hard part is actually how you deploy it on the ground. So first, I'm going to talk about the technology, and then I'm going to discuss also about all the constraints from the regulatory point of view that are very specific to our industry. So what we have developed for the ground is a fantastic miniaturized technology. So this is a radio chip that we have designed with the CA in France and Airbus as well. This is a 6-year development, and we are getting ready to mass produce this chip. This is what you need. This is what you need to have connection with the satellite. So it's really low power. It's low cost. It costs $5 to manufacture, basically. This goes inside a module. So this is our product. Actually, this is what we sell. It's a radio module. It's basically a component that you can solder on a printed circuit board that you can integrate in the car, trucks. You can use this in the maritime industry for fishing vessels, fishing buoys, the oil and gas industry, fleet management, weather stations. There are really thousands and thousands of applications. And that's a big challenge for us, is that we have a very fragmented market, and we have to decide where we go, how we grow, which opportunity we tackle first. And that's the beauty of the project as well, because you have really plenty, very diverse range of industries you can collaborate with. So yeah, that's it for the technology. I prepared a couple of slides with a few remarks that are, again, very specific about how hard is it to build a satellite company in Switzerland. First of all, even though we are using very small satellites and it's very low cost compared to the regular space project, it's still expensive. We still need to raise about 100 million. And you need to find a way to raise these funds. So in Switzerland, there are no space VCs, in case you were wondering. There are none of them. There are very few in Europe, actually. We discovered that there are only a few really space oriented VCs, and these guys don't have a lot of money. Some of these funds have less money than the size of the round we're trying to raise right now. So that makes it a bit difficult. So we knew actually from the beginning that we needed to think about being in the US. So having a presence in the US was was very important. It was one of the reasons for the success of the company as well. And we have actually secured a lot of investment from Switzerland, which is a great thing, and I'm going to talk about that also later. But we also secured several US investments that also gives a lot of credibility, and we continue to explore the different ways to access this US fund. I put on the right side of this slide, I put the mission patch, and you can see the little Swiss flag on this patch. It's not very common to have the Swiss flag on a rocket, simply because we are the first satellite operator originated from Switzerland. So as a pioneer, as a first operator from Switzerland, we had a lot of obstacles, very challenging and interesting obstacles, I would say, but to educate ourselves, to educate the people we're working with, the administrations. We don't have a space agency, which I think is a good thing, but it's also a small team. The Swiss Space Office has limited human resource. The legal framework is also less developed than in other space nations like France or Germany. So this requires more efforts on our side, but I would say this part was very interesting. It is also hard to find some very specific profiles. We need people who can operate satellites, basically satellites operators who are 24/7 in the control room to operate the satellites. So either you train them or you find some, but not in to get them countries. Same for the sales force. The people who know how to sell satellite end-to-end or satellite IoT services are definitely not in Switzerland. So again, you need to go get these people in the right place with the right experience, etc. And this is true for other profiles as well. And then, yeah, the last point that is also important to mention is that we are really a network. We are an infrastructure deal. So we need to deploy the network before we can generate the revenue. So really, we need to, most of the money that we raise, we need to raise it before we generate revenue. This is really a challenge, and a lot of investors, a lot of people don't understand really that in Switzerland, except in the pharma, obviously, which is probably the best place in the world to develop a pharma project is in Switzerland. In our case, we face that, that difficulty of explaining every time that first of all we need to deploy the network before we can generate any revenue. But we're getting there, and that's very, very exciting. I had other points about the obstacles, but I think I'm going to stop here. I'm not sure about how much time is left, but I'm going to talk about the advantages because this is important as well. We have many family offices in Switzerland, or family offices types of investors established in the country, and this is great. There are a lot of former entrepreneurs that are understand what we're doing, and have been very supportive. Private investors taking risk and being ready to invest in this kind of new project for Switzerland. So we have been relying a lot on this, but we also have institutional VCs from the US. I'd like to mention also for the people who think about developing a startup in Switzerland. I'd like to mention Investir, fantastic initiative. We're really happy and we love the way they work. They have been a very strong support for Astrocast. And then, as Fabio mentioned in his presentation, we can really rely on good, really well-trained people. We have access to world-class engineers from the engineering schools in Switzerland. These people, they love space engineering, so there is a very strong commitment, very strong dedication to the project. And I would say this is also part of the Swiss-made culture. Space engineering. Switzerland has been involved in space for a long time, not as an operator, but as provider of key technologies for many things. Even back in the Apollo program, the Switzerland was already providing some science experiments. And by the way, if you don't know the story, I'm sure most of you know, but the first flag that was planted on the moon is not a US flag, it's a Swiss flag. This is a true story, and you need to, if you don't believe me, you need to go check that online. The scientist of the University of Bern convinced convinced NASA to plant an experiment, a Swiss experiment, which was one of the only foreign experiments on board the Apollo mission, to plant it before the US flag to maximize the exposure time of this experiment that actually looks like a flag, because it's an aluminum foil that has been deployed on the surface of the moon. So this is a fun. On the heritage in space, we can rely on this expertise, the know-how, how you design reliable systems, components, how you test your subsystems and your components. So this is what really the core of our expertise at Astrocast. The innovation ecosystem, I think, is good. It's a very good ecosystem, especially for the past 2, 3, 4 years. I've seen a lot of good initiatives, and it's really, especially in the canton of Vaud, we see a lot of efforts being made, and this is paying off, and we can definitely validate that the efforts that have been put together are making some results, and I'm very happy to see that. So how do you scale globally from Switzerland as a satellite operator? There are a lot of regulatory aspects. First of all, and this is really hard to get, you need to obtain licenses to operate your satellites globally. And you have to do this, the different ways to do this. We find an elegant way to achieve that. It was really hard to get. This was the first objective, and we managed to get access to the right spectrum. It's a spectrum that is similar to the GPS frequencies, and that allows to offer a service that is excellent. And then once you get the license for the satellite, you need the licenses for the ground. So you have terminals being used in every countries of the world, and for each single country you need the license. This is very time consuming. It's very country specific. Some countries will ask you a fixed fee. Some will ask you a percentage of your revenue. Some will ask you to build a subsidiary with local citizens with a certain percentage in the company. Then you have the question of international waters. How does it work in the waters? Because we have a lot of applications in the maritime industry. So all the things, the regulatory work is very important. And there's all the certifications about the product so that you can use it in all the geographies. And many other things that I listed here. Distribution. If you work in Europe, it's easy to support the customers from Switzerland, but we plan to open Australia and New Zealand, and then we're looking at opening a local customer desk over there, obviously, to be able to work on the same time zone. There's always this question about, do you have your own subsidiary, or are you working with a local partner? And when you open your data management system to new geographies, it increases also the security threats. So you have to think about security management. And this is also a very important part of not only the technology, but the effort at the level of the company, how you make sure you remain highly secure so that your system is not hacked, your satellites are under control, and that nobody is taking advantage of your infrastructure. So that was the main point that came to my mind last night when I prepared this presentation. There are many others, and I think Fabio did a great job at explaining also many aspects about scaling up. We are a young scale up. We are going to start really selling our service in the second half of this year. We are already part, and very proud to be part of the scale up family. But we are going to face also a lot of the challenges that Beqom has faced in the way they had to scale up. So very happy to learn also from the other entrepreneurs who have done that before. So that's all on my side, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Fabien. I see there are a few very specific questions in the chat. I will try to maybe pick a few that can be more general, but maybe want to start with someone is asking if you had the support of ESA, so the European Space Agency, to build this.
Yes, we did actually. We had a great support from ESA. What you have to understand, it's actually ESA money is not coming from ESA, it's coming from its members. So the money you get from ESA is actually Swiss money, so public, and it's our taxes basically that goes to the budget of the Swiss Space Office, and this money is then redistributed by ESA, and we had a really nice support. About altogether, it's about 3 million euros, and this is non-dilutive. It's like a grant, if you want.
Excellent, perfect. So I'll go for the
and so not only financially speaking, it was very useful, but they also have experts, obviously, from the space industry that also are reviewing all the steps of our development and providing advice and reviewing the progress we make to make sure we take all the right steps to make a system that is reliable in space.
Okay. I see another question here, Fabien. Did you decide between subsidiarities with local partners, and if so, what were the criteria?
I would say a lot of this is constrained by the regulatory aspect. So we haven't opened subsidiaries yet. We have an office in the US, so we have a presence there because it was important. It's not a subsidiary; it's an independent company. It will become a subsidiary as soon as we start offering a service in the US. And for each country, we have to ask this question if it makes sense to have a partner instead of a subsidiary. And this is a difficult work. It's mostly the legal framework and the regulatory framework that defines most of this, I would say. And it's specific to our industry again.
Exactly. I don't know, maybe if Fabio, if you want to add something on that part, like how have you made these decisions? Oh, you're on mute. Fabio, you're on mute.
Sorry, can you repeat the question, because I was typing an answer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this is specific actually to Astrocast, but I think this could also be. Did you decide between subsidiarities with local partners, and if so, what were the criteria?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is based on the life cycle of the company. For me, partners or subsidiary, the key is going to be the people that you are ready to team up with. So your culture has to go beyond beyond the legal aspect. So on the beginning, you are not sure, you cannot really invest money, so you go with partner. But you try to team up with people that respond to the same to the same things, the same DNA. And as you evolve, you will see as it gets stronger, if you get successful, maybe these partners become part of your organization, or vice versa. But for sure, before hiring the right guy in the US, for example, we did at least two partnerships.
And were these actually facilitated by the fact that you had investors in the US? The fact that so was that an entrance key in a way to building partnerships there, or
no,
is that not related?
For me, the investor, they always come at the end. I don't think, if you think that investors are going to help you do something besides giving you money, you take a big risk. Nothing is going to be easier because of your investor.
Yeah, they're going to leverage that, right? If they help you, they're going to leverage that all the ways they can.
Yeah, absolutely. But of course, if you have a great name behind you, if you take an investor that's why we took Goldman Sachs. It was not even for the money; it was for the stamp. Okay, so it was not really for partners; it was more for customers. But yeah, no partners. You have you really have to convince them. But I don't think if what you have is good and unique. I will be surprised that's really your number one. It depends on industry. If you're in software, convincing a partner as a Swiss-based company, convincing a US partner that you have something good should be easier, because they will have that feeling that they have uncovered that thing that nobody else has, because it's not in the US, it's in Europe. So at least in software, finding a partner, I don't really see it as a challenge if you have something that is addressing local demand.
I see one question here in the chat. Have you considered scaling also in African countries or other continents? Because it feels like the US has been very present for both of you. Is there any other places?
So I can answer that, because very timely.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's probably the only office that we are thinking about opening in the very short term. It's South Africa. I was there. That was my last trip before the lockdown. So yeah, we're doing. But so yeah, of course, Africa. I think that if you are global, the name of the country or the location really doesn't matter. It's all about the market opportunity, and that's why I've been successful in China, in Japan. It all depends on what you have. With Beqom, it's not really China. It's mostly Western Europe, US, and now South Africa. But yeah, it doesn't matter. And the good news, you are in Switzerland. It's not more difficult to. It's easier to go to South Africa than to California, right? So yeah, great country. It all depends on the market opportunity, and that's the beauty of global. You don't have any barrier. If the potential is there, you go for it.
Yeah, exactly. I can echo that. It's really depending on the opportunities. What is good with our approach is that we're very flexible, so we can open geographies depending on this interest. And typically in Africa, we have many customers interested in IoT, Senegal, Ronga, South Africa, obviously, and yeah. Again, but Africa we don't see this as a difficult geography. For us, the difficult geographies would be more like India, Russia, China, for regulatory reason. Simply, in Africa, there are really nice opportunities also in the fishing industry. And we are definitely planning to deploy our service after we have connected. We're going to start with Europe because it's our home turf. We have many customers here, but Africa is more or less on the same time zone, so it's easy to deploy in Africa as well rapidly.
Julia, yeah.
Yes.
There is. I think I answered all the questions. So there are quite a few questions based for you, Fabien. I think the one that were addressed to my piece, I did answer in the chat. But there is one that, if I may, I would like to come back. So I answer it, but I would like to, because I think it's super important. May I? 1 minute?
Please. That's excellent.
It's about the culture. Someone asked, how is the culture important, and that's something I really didn't know when I started Beqom, right? Culture is the most important thing. More important than everything. It's the source of absolutely everything that's going to happen in your company, because it's the culture that's going to help you understand the type of people that you have to hire, and it's easy to hire people with the right skills. You can evaluate the skills, right? But if at Beqom we are not hiring a candidate, it's not because of the skills. If you make it to the interview level, he has the skills. It's because the vast majority is because of the culture. So are you willing to chit chat in English in the kitchen, in the office, in Lyon? If the answer is no, you are not going to be part of Beqom. I'm just taking a stupid example here, but it's that culture that's going to allow you to identify who to hire, so that the new guy that is coming to your organization is not diluting your culture, he's reinforcing your culture. And because you are global, because you are spread all over the world, because you are not having coffee together, that culture is really, really important, right? So number one, define the culture. Number two, you push communication. So during COVID, good benefit of this crisis is everybody is communicating like crazy. But even before COVID, I was doing equivalent of Zoom with the entire company. at least on a monthly basis. Every first Monday of the day, no question asked. Even if there's nothing to discuss, we have a 1-hour session with all the employees. And once a year, we put, and now it's getting trendy, but from 2009, every year we put all the employees together for a week in the beginning of the year. And that's super important. That's really like, you know, creating that, that kernel that's going to last for the next 12 months.
Actually, I would like to add something on this topic, if I may, to you, Fabio. At what point do you think it really makes a difference in the culture? I mean, if you come from maybe over 30 employees or over 50, where you really feel the switch on the, you know, like the initial team was here from the beginning, and then when you start being really big, when do you think it's changing?
Yeah, it's around that 70-ish, you know, there's a lot of books having written that you cannot have more than 100, theoretically more, 100 current connection is an absolute max. I think even to know and understand 100 employees, it's impossible, at least for me. So that switch was really around 70, where all of a sudden you cannot rely on your personal connection with each of the employees to manage that culture. All of a sudden, the culture that you want, you have to rely on other people to do it. So yeah, 70 is the number. 70 people.
Thank you.
Fabien, do you want to add something?
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to answer the question. You were saying about the culture?
Yeah, I think that was a really good question from Caroline. It's like, as soon as you grow and you expand internationally, like the team is growing, the team is maybe not directly with you in the office. How do you ensure that a certain culture in your company remains there, or maybe actually makes it even more important, as Fabio was mentioning, to have a very strong culture, but how to define it, and maybe how have you defined it at Astrocast?
Yeah, so first of all, on the fact that we still, one big family of about 40 people, most of them in Switzerland. And we have a few guys, I'm one of them, based also in the US, and we come back and forth on a regular basis. So it's not that hard to maintain this culture. It will become harder when we have more people abroad, but we don't expect to have many people abroad, except these few subsidiaries that might be necessary. So we really focus on the team in Switzerland, and we do a lot of things to support the culture. We have defined clear values that we try to share, to infuse to the team regularly. We have community events. We have Thursday pizza meeting, where everybody get together. Even on Zoom, we do it, and we make sure that everybody can express what they want to express, that they feel like we hear them, and it's actually working great so far. And there's really this, I think, this passion also about space that is shared by most people in the team, and this enthusiasm, you can really feel it. So it has not been a big challenge for us right now, but I can totally understand that it could become one when we start with more people abroad with different cultures.
Thank you. Is there any new question? I see exactly.
Yeah, there's a good one on fundraising, maybe. I think
yes.
That's what could relate to everyone. Someone is asking, is it different to raise money in the US or in Europe? And so, I think, like Fabien said, I had exactly the same experience. When you are in your first rounds, when you are talking to angels, seeds, like people, Switzerland is great. You don't need to go anywhere else. There is so many wealthy people that are super, that want to be part of your adventure. That's how I personally we could raise money in 2 weeks. The problem is when you go to the big ones, right? You have a well-known one based in Geneva. Those are the guys. I could not even get a meeting. While at the same time I'm not even talking about a term sheet or whatever. I'm just saying a meeting to talk about the business. I could not get it, because they don't talk to Swiss people, because if you are in Switzerland, you cannot be part of the best somehow. And at the very same time, I was talking to the leading, from Inside Venture, whatever, right? KKR, great names in London and in New York. So really the issue is when you talk to these big names, right? So now, is there a difference between Europe and US? Thank God, because most of them are global now. I mean, the big ones, they all have offices in London and New York, less and less. Now, something that personally I have zero patience for, and you're going to hear it when you raise money from the US, is the discount, valuation discount, because you are European. So, if a US firm is lowering your value and valuating your business a little bit below compared to what it would be if you were headquartered in the US, pass. Okay, I will never take money from these people, and you have quite a few. So make sure you establish the baseline, what your valuation could be or need to be based on talking to global players first. But for me, that's really the big difference. If not, frankly, I haven't seen a difference in attitude, in criteria, in valuation, in due diligence processes, whether I was dealing with Frankfurt, Paris, or London-based people compared to New York or San Francisco.
Can you maybe say how you managed then to have that meeting with that highly impressive investors? Like, what made it work in the end? Was it luck?
I don't know. I was not trying to. I was not trying to be arrogant by saying these people didn't want to meet me. My point was that we had no problem just pitching. Say, look, we're thinking about raising money. We will be interested to be talking to you. The answer is, okay, what's your business? Can we spend, can we schedule 1 hour? The people say, okay, let's schedule 1 hour over the phone. By the way, a meeting over the phone is perfectly fine. And that's a meeting that is normally easy to get, right? And I promise this very well-known, Swiss VC, because their office in California is probably bigger than in Geneva, but I could never even get that meeting. And they invest in company like Beqom. So I was just pointing out the fact that, the nul n'est prophète dans son pays, and there is no English version of that. It's just that you cannot convince your fellow villagers that you have something good. They would say it's not possible that in our village you have someone exceptional. Exceptional people or exceptional companies, or they are always somewhere else. I don't know how to translate that issue, but that's what I was pointing out. Now, how do you get meetings? It's like make sure you have good metrics. Make sure as long as you manage your business as if it was yours, as long as you are investing your own money in your business, then it should be easy to convince other people to invest money in your business as well.
I would say it's not. Again, it's specific to us, but it's not hard to talk to investors. There are plenty of them, and they are looking for great projects to invest in. Even during the COVID, we still see a lot of investors showing interest. They have capital available that they need to deploy. The hard part for us was to talk with the right investors, the people who actually understand what we do and understand that it's a long-term project, and that typically invest in this kind of because we spent a lot of time until we really managed to find really the right people with the right mindset, and now we know exactly, and we don't waste time anymore with talking to too many people before we get to the right person. So we are still very active on that front. As I said, we need to raise some significant amounts, but we are very selective, and before we put too much effort into the relationship, we make sure that these guys, first of all, they have money, because there are plenty of people who say that they want to invest because they're curious, but they don't have money to invest, or they cannot deal with the risk, or they cannot deal with the type of project. So it's important to filter this as soon as possible so that you use your time and effort efficiently.
Perfect, thank you. So
having meeting with these people is not difficult.
It's not the difficult part. Okay, that's good to know. We are slowly reaching the end here, and I would like to ask just a few questions regarding then the support that you've been having, like being in Switzerland, also like maybe from InnoSwiss or from Innovaud, or the type of things that really were useful for you. If you can give us just a quick.
Fabien, go ahead.
I mentioned a few points in my presentation, but I'd say I really also agree with some of the elements you shared, Fabio. Starting a company in Switzerland is really the right. It's a great place to start a business. There are plenty of advantages, and you realize that when you grow up in. I grew up in Switzerland. I was born in the US, but I grew up in Switzerland. And when you go see how it is elsewhere, this is when you fully realize all the advantages that you have in Switzerland. And I think it's good to go check and see how it is elsewhere, so that you understand what is great. There are also drawbacks in Switzerland. We know them quite well. Everybody talks about them also in the ecosystem. But I think it's changing positively. And some of the key elements for us were really the proximity with the academics, the nice innovation ecosystem, the ability to in a small in a small environment to be able to talk with big companies, investors, and everything. Everybody gets together around the EPFL or the big halls in Switzerland, and this is working well.
For Beqom, we really didn't use any support, and I think it's a mistake. If I had to do it again, I will. But you build a global business. I was never here. Still, I mean, now because of COVID, I'm here. But normally, I'm traveling. For sure, I'm taking the plane once a week at least, for sure, guaranteed. So I'm not here. I was not here, and therefore I didn't know of Innovaud. And so on and so on. It's only, so we started in 2009. It's only in 2015, 16, or even 18 that we started being approached by venturelab. That was, I think, 2015. And then by Innovaud in 2018, as we started getting recognition, prizes, being on TV in the local Swiss newspaper and stuff like this. We had the people approaching us, and that's when we discovered that we could have raised money, we could have done a lot of things that we didn't do, which I think is also healthy. I think doing things on your own and not relying on too much help is also healthy. But again, if I had to do it, I would do it again. And we did take the COVID-19 loan. So that's at Beqom is the first time that we are definitely using government support.
In our case, maybe I can also specify that at the very beginning it was hard. We didn't get selected for the venture cake. We didn't get, and it was also us not being able to sell our ID properly. And we were a little bit. People were seeing us like aliens with a crazy ID. And it has really changed, and we learned also how to sell ourselves correctly, to build our business plan correctly. And I would say after 2 years, then we really started to get some good support. And I think the ecosystem has really became more mature during the past 3 years, right? Before that, it was maybe less effective than it is now. At least that's my perception. And we were able to better use the different supports provided more recently, I would say. And of course, the COVID support is very appreciated as well.
Maybe I can add just a few things on all the initiatives who are supporting scale-ups. Eventually, you also have like scale-up bootcamps with Digital Switzerland. There are more and more support to help startups on the growth phase, which was also maybe not the case 4 years ago or 5 years ago, but we also see, for example, Innosuisse having scale-up coaching. It's also quite new, or even the Swiss Entrepreneurs Fund also have specific or scale-up support. So we really see that the ecosystem is evolving, like you said, Fabien, and it's really nice to also then attract more companies in this growth phase in the region.
Thank you so much. Actually, I just saw one last question that is quite interesting. I thought So while going, then scaling up and being more international, have you had to change the way you compensate key employees? So I see that some you have answered maybe in writing, but maybe we could discuss that because I'm not sure everyone is reading now in the chat. Has that been like in a big way? Did you have to completely change the way you compensate your employees?
There's only one expert here.
Yeah, I think that's maybe more for Fabio.
Yeah, and I was not even thinking of that because when I started Beqom, I knew nothing about comp. Trust me. Yeah, that's an interesting subject, and we could definitely do a full hour on this. So, the important point, I think, when we started Beqom, I personally put all my money in it. That's we really auto-finance it so for me it was like no doubt it would be successful, right? So with the support of my wife, all the money made from the previous exit was in there. But then I wanted all the people that joined me to do the same thing, and right there it's a natural selection because you only surround yourself with people that believe to the idea even more than you, right? And it doesn't matter how much they put. All you want is that they put everything they have, right? One of my key partner or CEO that now is a friend, right? But when he joined, he was like golden boy from the Golden Coast in Zurich with a lot of classic cars, living in a phenomenal apartment. And he sold everything. He moved to a shitty place in order to invest in the company. That guy has my loyalty for life. So basically, you want to set up a comp and bend package that create the behavior that you want. So on the beginning, I just want people that really believe in it. And if they're successful, they're going to become rich. But if they fail, they get zero. So really a 0-1 game. So what's the best? It's not even, it's not even option, it's shares, right? Shares that you have the right to keep if you build something that is worth something. And that's really how we started. So like associates, right? We had associations, right? It was really a mess from a fiscal and everything perspective, but it was healthy in terms of spirit. And of course, as we grew, as we consolidate, we started transforming the contract into employee to start paying salaries, not just commissions, etc., etc., etc. But in the beginning, it was all variable and equity. And now it's totally normal, right? We're in the grid where it's for many, but everybody has at least a variable / bonus piece. And so as you become a scale up, you become more normal, and it's normal. You need to hire normal people. You cannot have only people, passionate people ready to dedicate their life to your business. That's you cannot scale that way. But the stock option, we keep it for me. It's gold. Okay, so we have a pool of stock option, and every stock option is worth. If I give it to someone, it really means a lot. That person really needs to have done something special. So I'm not giving them away. There is no stock option inflation.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Fabio. I think that was quite an interesting question. I wanted to cover that before we have to end this discussion. So I will just maybe do a quick reminder that we have a series of events coming up so that everyone here can also have a quick look and join. This is not this one. This is here, sorry. These are the 3 upcoming events. So we have next week on Adapt Your Regulatory Plan, the June 9th, How to Manage Your Board During a Crisis, and June 16th, Foster Corporate Partnerships Online. If you're interested, you should join, again in collaboration with Innovaud, the one place if you have questions regarding innovation in Switzerland. If you're scaling a business, contact them, they can help you in many ways. I would like to thank our speakers today. We have our 3 contributors to this discussion. I think this was fantastic to have you all here for 1.5 hours to discuss that topic. Many cool insights. Thank you, Fabien. Thank you, Fabio. Thank you, Caroline, for being with us. And I don't know if you have something to share for the end.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for inviting us and for your time, everyone who was listening. So And don't hesitate to contact us if you have any more questions or ideas that you'd like to share. And I guess Julia or Caroline, my email can be shared if necessary to people who ask more questions.
Same here. Happy to answer any email.
That's very generous of you. Thank you very much. Then I will do so because I've seen that some people actually requested. I wasn't sure this would be possible, but thank you so much. That's extremely generous. I would like to end then this discussion, and thanks again to all of you for this discussion, who I think was very fruitful and insightful. And I think we hope to have many of you in the upcoming events. And Fabien, Fabio, Caroline, I hope to see you soon in person, hopefully, at some events. Have a great end of morning and talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye, Julia.
Bye.